Just arriving is Engineer Komolafe. Engineer Benga Komolafe is the CCE of NUPRC. Please, a round of applause for him. The President of PENGASSAN and Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, past presidents, CWC members, NEC members here present, all the TUC's chairmen and other affiliate unions who are here, comrades, ladies and gentlemen, we are about to start the program for today. And we will begin with the national anthem. I crave your indulgence for every one of us to rise up as we take the national anthem. The national anthem, please. Let's go. Arise. Stanza of the national anthem. Please, let's take it together. O God of creation, direct our noble cause, guide our leaders right, help our youth the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow, and living just and true, great lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign. Amen. You may be seated, please. Mr. President, sorry, I think we still need to rise up as we take the solidarity song. When the union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what falls on earth is weaker than the people's strength of one. For the union makes us strong. Solidarity. Solidarity forever. Ah, solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. Victory. Victory. Ladies and gentlemen, comrades, invited guests, we're going to take the opening remark by the president of PENGASSAN and also the TUC president, comrade, engineer Festus Osifo. A round of applause for him, please, as he comes up to give us the opening remark. Please be reminded that we are live on Channels Television. Thank you.
Solidarity. Solidarity. Great PENGASSAN. Great PENGASSAN. Aluta. Victoria. Aluta. Victoria. Our agenda. Our agenda. Train a woman. Build a woman. Train a woman. Educate a woman. Solidarity. Injury to one. Blessing to one. Enjoyment. Enjoyment. Credit alert. Credit alert to one. Credit alert to one. Good morning, dear and precious comrades. You know, deliberately I said credit alert to one 3 times because the credit providers are all here. The past presidents of PENGASSAN, our very own Elder Pa Owoduni, President Ezewanka is not around this morning, but he will join us later. He was with us yesterday. The former President Brown Ugbefun, former President Babatunde Ogun, former GS Shina Oluoye. Then this order. So I'm going to call our other next elder. I will refer to him as the former GEC chairman, NNPC. He's a comrade at heart, and he's a comrade true to true. He was once with us in the struggle, and I still think that he is also with us in the struggle today, but in a higher realm and in a higher form. Because everything he does, he reflects the true spirit of a trade unionist. So I wish to welcome our special guest today and one of our keynote speakers. And I'm glad to also say that he was a true PENGASSAN comrade. Malam Mele Kolo Keare F Nape OF Arrow. I have to introduce him first before the chief regulator of the Upstream, because he is one of us. To the CCE of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, Engineer Gbenga Komolafe, FNSC, we welcome you, sir. Then to our very own, that we do, before now we refer to him as the COOCS, the man we always run to when there are troubles, and we run to him to help us resolve a lot of troubles. And he has done that diligently before he was now moved to gas and power. We thank you, sir, for being with us today. Forever. Then the General Secretary, or in TUC we call it Secretary General, the Secretary General of the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, Comrade Nuhu Abba Toro. Africa, Soleto, Continua, Asata, the General Secretary of PENGASSAN, Comrade Lomuba Okubawa, the Deputy President of PENGASSAN, Comrade Abwa Owan. Forever. all the trustees of PENGASSAN, all the CWC members of PENGASSAN, the NEC members of PENGASSAN, the members of the Congress of PENGASSAN, distinguished zonal officers, and the branch officers here present. I wish to, on behalf of all of us, PENGASSAN members worldwide, welcome our distinguished guest for finding time to be here with us today. You know, yesterday, we do announce to us that they ought to be here yesterday, but because of the activities that was going on in the villa, that activities was feast. Much more after we have fixed our date and we have sent out invites. So we now needed to flip one or two things in order for us to have them here today. Because these are the policy makers, these are the shapers of the industry. So it was also nice for us to have them, for them to tell us one or two things as relating to energy transition. The group CEO of NNPC and the CCE of NUPROC, as well as their entourage, we wish to gladly inform you that this program kicked off yesterday, and we have some representatives as well from your various organizations who were here yesterday to also talk to us. So it is a 3-day event that we organized. You know, PENGASSAN National felt that we should put some of these together. We've been hearing about energy transition. We've been hearing about the fact that there is going to be disruption to our work system in the next few years. So we needed to put this together in order for us to do some appraisal to know what are those things that we need to do today. What are those things that we need? What are the skill sets? What are the trainings we need to do today, or we need to start inculcating today in order for us to still remain relevant tomorrow? And all these we started extrailing, all these we started discussing, because at the end of the day, at the end of this conference, we ought to take home the learnings. We ought to have a communique that we are going to send to policymakers in the government, including yourself. We ought as well to also engage our 120 branches in PENGASSAN. We need to engage our congresses. We need to engage our members from the take-home that we are going to get from this engagement in the next 3 days. So yesterday, as part of the conversation, a lot of things came up. And part of what came up that yesterday was also that there is nothing much to fear. But we need to be prepared. We need to develop some skills. We need to develop some critical reasoning abilities. We need to develop problem-solving skills. That when we develop all these, then tomorrow wouldn't be much problem. Because in PENGASSAN, we have the best. We have the finest. We have the most educated Nigerians. In PENGASSAN, we have members that are cut across all fields, from the fields of engineering to the field of medicine, to the field of law, to the field of accounting, you can name it all. That because of the technical skills that we already have, so we have had the basics. So adaptation to greener energy, adaptation to be able to work with solar panels, for example, when it comes to that, adaptation to be able to work with hydrogen fuel, adaptation to be able to work with EV charger batteries, for example, it will no longer be difficult because the technology that is required to actually bring out oil from the ground, the technology that is required for us to be able to bring out crude from 3,000 meters waterbed, it's much more rigorous. It's much more difficult compared to the direction that we are moving to. But because we don't want to be caught nappy, because we don't want to be caught by surprise, we needed to prepare ourselves today so that we will become much more stronger, we will become much more productive tomorrow. And part of what also came as the learning yesterday is also, our elders spoke clearly about the issues on subsidy. I think I should also use this opportunity to say one or two things about it. Because after yesterday's discourse, there was some engagement outside that people were asking, what is the clear position of PENGASSAN regarding this? We have said clearly, I think the very first time in a very long while where PENGASSAN took a stand on this matter was in 2016 when our late President FOJ led us in a NEC meeting in Calabar, where we declared support for subsidy. But after that, we have been engaged in lots of conversations and we have had lots of engagement in this regard. One of the challenges is also that government also needs to help the union leaders. Government needs to put some certain things in place so that it will be easier, even when we understand the issues, even when we know that today it is clearly not sustainable for us to be spending about close to 7 trillion naira in the payment of subsidy. It is clearly not sustainable. But the challenge that we have today is just like a man who wakes up in the morning and tells his child that I can no longer pay your school fees, that things are difficult. He calls the wife, he tells the children, your school fees can no longer be paid. And he tells the wife, we have to reduce the quantity of food we eat in this house because there is austerity. But at the same time, this man goes around to marry marry second wife, marry third wife, marry fourth wife, and the man goes around to, if he was taking a bottle of alcohol a day, he's now taking 5 bottles. If he was drinking a bottle of Eva on a daily basis, he's now drinking like 4 or 5 a day, Eva wine. So that calls for question. The children will not call him, and they will ask him, Daddy, are you sure we are actually in austerity? The children will not call him and say, Daddy, I'm not sure what you are telling us is actually true, because you must start practicing what you say. We quite know from the information available to us that the finances of this country is in a very difficult situation. We know as well that the amount of money that we use in servicing our debt is even getting higher than our revenue. Servicing debt, the debt we are servicing is actually the interest and not the principal. So it shows clearly that we are in a dire strait. But our leaders must live by example. Today, if you check the budget that was just passed, there's what they call service-wide vote. The service-wide vote today is going to 3 trillion naira. The service-wide vote is where you draw money from when, the accounting system of service-wide vote is questionable. Today, we still live in profligacy. Today, go to the various states and see what our governors are doing. They cannot tell us that we are passing through austerity. They cannot tell us that they need our help, but they are still living business as usual. We must cut our coat according to our size. We have challenged them and we have told them, why can't you come out, for example, and you lead by example? You make some comments to say, okay, henceforth, I'm going to call down A, B, C, D, and E. And actually, you go ahead to do it. The National Assembly will come out. Oh, we are going to cut our budget by 50%. Then same goes across board. When you have done that, it is easier for you to now engage the union leaders. That, okay, on my path, I have done A, B, C, and D. And at the end of the day, we are still having some difficulties. That today, I want you to support me. Today, I want you to explain to your members that these issues or this particular regime or this particular subsidy or whatsoever the issues are no longer sustainable. Then it will be easier for us to engage our people on what the facts are. But the way it is today, it is relatively difficult. But these are conversations that we are going to be having moving forward. Then also, there was also some discussions that were held yesterday about how in Nigeria, how our production has nosedived. We have acknowledged this. And we know that as it is today, we are having issues clearly that are bordering on crude oil theft. This is a real issue. And when the deputy president yesterday came out, he said something clearly. That as PENGASSAN, and I want to re-echo it, if any of our member is found culpable, we will not shield anybody. Because we will not allow the few bad eggs in our midst to paint us in a negative light. We will not. So whenever anybody, no matter how highly placed that person is, that person should be exposed. And today, there is a reporting portal that was also announced to us yesterday, and it was displayed on the screen. And I wish to use this opportunity to thank the GCO of NNPC, because since we visited the command and control center, we have not actually seen. So I thank you, because when we went there, it was quite eye-opening. So some of the things that we saw right there, when you go there, you see that they monitor a lot of the activities that are going on in the Niger Delta today. A lot of the issues bordering on crude oil theft are being monitored real time. And the response time as well has actually been improved. PENGASSAN, dear PENGASSAN members, I wish to also inform you that it is our members that developed this technology almost 100%. So this was a locally developed solutions. These were solutions that were developed here in Nigeria, and I think we should be proud of that. So part of what was also said yesterday was the state of the refinery. Today, a colleague of mine that is working in the refinery and was employed in the year 2005 told us about 2 years ago that since he was employed in Port Harcourt refinery, and he has worked in Port Harcourt refinery all through his working career in NNPC, that he has never seen any turnaround maintenance until what started sometime last year. So today, I can confirm that the level of work that is going on in our refinery today, most especially in Port Harcourt, it is something that gladdens our heart. Should we have gotten to that state as a country? The answer clearly is a no. Should we have allowed our refinery to get to that point that today we are doing a total rehabilitation? There's a difference between turnaround and total rehabilitation. So what is going on today is real. What is going on today is a total rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refinery. And we have also advocated that as we move into this green energy, as we move into renewables, we should, as a matter of urgency, develop policies that could make us refine our products here at home, because it has a lot of advantages. Outside the fact that it's going to bring in or employ a lot of people, it is also going to add to the value chain of the crude oil production. Because what we have simply done as a nation is just to take our crude and export abroad. But if we refine them here, imagine the quantum of jobs that will be created. If we refine them here, just imagine the value chains, the petrochemical companies, the fertilizer companies that are going to spring up. And I'm also quite happy as well that the government has also bought a stake, 20% stake in the Dangote refinery, because energy security is one thing that the government must take very, very seriously. Because as a country, if you don't have energy security, it becomes a bigger problem. And we have said that we produce, let's assume, when the pipeline are now fixed, let's assume when the issues of insecurity is now dealt with, and we now go back to our initial production of about 2 million barrels of crude per day. These 2 million barrels of crude per day, if we can refine the entire crude here, we don't even need to export a single barrel abroad. We can become the hub for West Africa's sub-region. And when we become the hub for West African sub-region, we will not worry too much on issues that are bordering on the exportation of crude or who we buy our crude across the world. Comrades, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to assure us that as PENGASSAN, we will continuously do those things that are required to ensure that your jobs are protected. We will continuously fight the ills in the systems that are inimical to the increment or the betterment of our welfare. Because if we don't fight the issues of crude oil theft, it will be difficult for us to justify why we won't pay increment. If we don't fight some of the menaces that are currently bedeviling the industry, it will be so difficult for us to sit with our management when the companies are making losses for us to push for a better welfare. Once again, I wish to welcome our invited guests, and by the special grace of God, I believe that at the end of tomorrow, we must have been better equipped I believe that at the end of tomorrow, that these great lectures that we must have taken, this great information that we must have taken would have sunk in, and we will be able to relay them to our respective congresses. Solidarity. Thank you so much, and God bless us all.
Please, can we give a round of applause to the president of PENGASSAN, who is the chief organizer of this minute summit. Thank you for that opening remark. Let's clap till he goes to his seat. Thank you. Thank you. The president of PENGASSAN, I crave your indulgence because of time for us to switch the program a little bit and bring on stage, because I strongly believe while you were talking, some things were eating on his inside for him to give a counter immediately to you. And I believe I should bring him up immediately for him to also give his own perspective, the government. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome, once a comrade, always a comrade, the GCEO, NNPC Limited, to speak on the topic, positioning the Nigeria energy industry for the future in this energy transition. Help me welcome Malam Mele Kolokiare to give us the government perspective. A round of applause for him. Let's clap till he gets here.
So, where do I start from? Yes, I think I will start from injury for one. I'll change the whole perspective to injury for everybody. I think that's the most important part of this, and we'll be in solidarity, no doubt about it. And let me acknowledge the presence of past presidents, Elder Odumi, and we have come a long way. We were in the unions in the 90s together, and I can see very many of my friends and colleagues. Thank you for coming here. And of course, the rest of the comrades, Presido, I am not sure I have anything to give a contrary view. Actually, Presido has spoken for all of us. I have the temptation to take my bow and go because there's no better way of putting the issues as he did. But having said this, and I'm also not going to talk about government perspective. It is not a government issue, it's an industry issue. No doubt, I've never seen this scale of support and coordination for government to focus on the oil and gas industry, to bring on the table the necessary legislative support that lacked all logic, that defied all logic for as long as many of us have started work in the industry over 30-something years. Several attempts to put in place a structure that will have a commercial national oil company with regulators that are world-class and that are adjusting to time and reality. And all this defied logic. Not just in the last 20, 30 years, but as you will all recall, and my guy is here, Engineer Komalafe, that we know that the Petroleum Industry Act is a document put in place in the 60s, late 60s. And I can tell you, it hasn't undergone any substantial change since 1967 to 68, including the tax laws. The Petroleum Profit Tax Act, the other component of our operations, is also a 1960s document, and I can also confirm that none of them have gone through any substantial change since that time. That means that we have stagnated as an industry. We couldn't move with realities. Our fiscal terms were not in tune with the realities of today, and therefore you continuously see decline in interest and investment in our country, getting to where we are. I'm sure you see some of the data around. It's very clear that when companies make choice of investment, first line of reasoning is that, look, can I get back my money? Would I get the appropriate margin? Is it competitive? And until the last 1.5 years, I can also confirm to you that we are never competitive. So companies invest here as a last resort. And I've engaged a number of our partners, and whenever they go to board engagements where such decisions of commerciality are taken, that we rank one of the lowest because we are not competitive. Our industry is not very transparent, regulatory rules are not clear, and that as a result of this, we are where we are. But fortunately, the courage of government to pass the Petroleum Industry Act has prompted us to a position where everyone now recognizes that we're a very competitive business environment. Competition means that already engagements are going on. I'm sure some of you may be involved in some of these engagements. That companies are coming back on the table. Business decisions are being made. Companies want to come back and invest in these countries, and new interests are coming up. That means an expansion in our businesses as we go forward. Even as we do this, there are stark realities today, which is what Presido has mentioned. And I don't need to bore you with any more facts, rather than to say that the situation of vandal actions on our pipelines and our assets, degenerating into crude oil theft, which you have seen in the media, many of which we can't even say them in the public, is that it has gotten to a point where it needs all of us. It needs all of us to react. And we're already doing this. The government security agencies in partnership with NMPs and our partners, and their companies where you work. Whether it's a service company or an operating company, even a regulator, everyone is on the table today, because if we don't arrest this, we'll have no industry. And more than anything else, it will completely question any possibility of energy security for our country. And for NMPC, we are law required to be the guarantor of energy security for this country. This is very broad, very tough, and very demanding. It means that, we must supply energy to this country in all its forms: power, petroleum products, and of course also provide the resources that are required to build even the new energies, as we're talking about the energy transition. So it's all-encompassing, and until we arrest the current situation of theft and abandoned actions, it's very difficult to take the next step. And I'm happy to also share with you today that monumental progress has been achieved. And I can tell you, in the next not long while, in a couple of days, or probably maximum a week, a number of our pipeline assets will come back on stream. This will no doubt provide the resources that will be required to go back to work, to reinvest, and also provide resources for our country so that other infrastructural developments in our country can be promoted or can be delivered. So this is clearly an area that requires all of us. And just like Presido has said, to whoever, anywhere, whether it's in NMPC or regulator, security agency, or wherever you are, whoever you are working for, as long as we know such people, please report at the portal, because it's the enemy of all of us. It's our duty to do this. Many of the things that you have seen could not have been delivered. Some of the connection that you have seen could not be done except with the involvement of professionals. So it's not possible. So that means that who are the professionals? Me and you. All of us. And they are in our midst. Some we know, some we do not. The ones we know, we must put them on the table. And that's what we are doing. We will spare no one. We will spare nobody in this action, so that ultimately we can get back our assets, so that we can also step forward and say, look, we are doing well, let's have a different chat. This is very natural, but this struggle is for all of us. And I'm very, very happy with the current level of support we are getting from government security agencies in all their ramifications, and it is working. And also the involvement of private securities. We don't mince word about it. That the involvement of private security companies in this journey has helped us. Many of the discoveries we made today could not have been done without local knowledge, access to the people, supporting the local people who are used to do so much, who are used by the criminals to perpetrate some of these for very little things that they give them. And now they are involved and they are supporting us in securing this asset, and we are very, very proud of this intervention. Now, coming to energy transition, what does it really mean? We're not climate deniers. There are real issues with climate. I'm sure for those of you working in Bayelsa State, you would have seen the scale of devastation the current flood has caused. Many of our assets have been shut down. Gas supply to NLNG is now completely challenged because of the very fact that many of our assets are flooded now. This is reality. Nobody is denying climate. But as you are also facing the realities of responding to this, and we're also not competing to catch up with carbon emission. Let me be very clear. The whole of sub-Saharan Africa contribute about 3% of our global emissions. Yes. And we don't want to catch up. But we are also not in the position to do many of the things that the energy transition conversation puts on the table. Migrate immediately to renewable. Yes, it's excellent to migrate to renewable, but you need resources. You need someone to invest. That conversation must come on the table. That where are you going to get the resources? Who will do it? Who will provide the technology? And as you do this, in today's reality, in terms of infrastructure in Africa, particularly in our country, today, basic facts that we're all aware of. 50% of our people don't have access to electricity. 70% don't have access to clean cooking fuel. So you must address this. You cannot jump from this situation to a position of electric vehicles. So even the electric vehicle needs electricity, I believe so. I don't know if other electrical engineers are here. So you need electricity even to power the electric vehicles. So people are bothered about the basics to the extent that another complication of climate is coming our way. Today, the Sahara Desert moves southwards at least 1 kilometer or 2 every year. And the reason is very simple. Deforestation. Because people don't have access to clean cooking fuel. Because they have to cut down the trees. So they have cut down all the trees that you can find in the northernmost part of this country. Now, we are cutting down the trees in the south. I'm sure you all know this. That charcoal is now business. People will tell you, look, give me capital, I want to start charcoal business. What it means, I will cut down the tree, burn them so that we can cook with it. And even the forests in the south are going down. So it's our duty as the first line of response to make sure that we provide an alternate cooking fuel. This is what we are doing. To see how we can increase CNG for vehicles, bring LPG for cooking, create the infrastructure that will deliver gas into homes and also into factories so that we can take off some of this from the less cleaner fuel so that ultimately we can transit gradually into cleaner fuel, but in a very just manner. So that in the next 5-6 years, you will see gradual shift. No one is denying, because it will get to a point where you can do nothing about it. So we're realizing this, and that's why our country is also committed to net zero by 2060, not 2050, because we have our stark realities to deal with. But what does it mean to me and you in the industry? Energy transition is real. So whatever you do, technologies are shutting down. Companies are making very huge decisions. Some of them got into reversal mode. I'm sure you know some of our companies have said, okay, they have changed their minds, even going back to coal. So we're not advocating that anybody should do this. Some countries have decided that there will be no new refineries in their country again. This is the reality we're dealing with. But here now, we need more refineries and more refinery capacity to meet our current needs. So it's a different perspective. And that is why for us, in the short term, clearly our population that is growing, 70% of our population below the age of 30, and therefore for us, it is a growing population, growing middle class, which I can see in this room, and they have greater need for energy, and therefore that energy must be provided in the short term. And that gap can only be filled by the oil and gas industry in the short term while we transit into cleaner fuels as we are doing. Many of our companies have obligations, have commitments to do clean energy transition plans. Every one of us, including our company, reducing carbon emissions, reducing our footprints. But ultimately, it will have to go to a point where we can say, yes, we have met our basics, and that we are now ready to take the next step. Of course, we are doing it concurrently, no doubt about it. But what does it mean to all of us? It means more opportunities in this industry. But I can tell you that the industry is expanding in a different way. In our case, for Nigeria oil and gas industry, or the Nigeria energy industry, we never seen any need for her to have a greater improvement in production, greater provision of energy that we have today because our population has monumentally grown. We are not able to catch up, so it's a perfect opportunity for us. But all this won't happen except we collaborate in the industry. We see the stark realities. We address our challenges of today, which is essentially around battle actions on our product and pipeline. And also, ultimately, to support our companies to make sure that we take the next business decision and the next business decision with the help of our regulators, who are now in a perfect position to help us. And I believe that it's an opportunity moment of opportunity for the oil and gas industry in our own context for Nigeria, so that we can become the hub of petroleum products. That's why I say I didn't need to represent anything President has said. He has got it perfectly. Everything we are doing today shows that we are heading towards a situation where Nigeria will be the hub of petroleum product supply in Sahara West Africa. We will complete rehabilitation of our refineries. By the way, I'm sure you are aware, I can see some of my refineries. By the way, I'm sure you are aware, I can see some of my colleagues from the refineries here. You are aware that even if 4 refineries work today, they can only make 80 million liters of PMS from our refinery. Today, our evacuation, let me make it very, very clear. I'm sure you have heard a number of things in the media. Yes, maybe our communication is weak. We haven't informed our shareholders and our stakeholders appropriately, and that can explain some of the reactions that we are seeing. But today, what we know is evacuation from the depots. Today, our evacuation level is 66 million liters per day. Anytime, and I can tell you this, and I will share the data with you. It's in our website, and I'm sure the authority will put it on their website. Anytime you bring down the evacuation to below 60 million liters, you will see scarcity in the streets. So yes, it's a clear indication that the evacuation from the depots is reflective of our consumption level, but not our exact consumption figures. Are there leakages? Absolutely yes, no doubt about it. We admit that whenever you have an arbitrary situation, you will have issues. You will have cross-border issues. You will have internal issues. You can't avoid it. For instance, today, if you are going to the market to sell petroleum product, you will sell it at 371 naira to recover your cost. And today, we are transferring, and it's very important to put this on the record, we are transferring to oil marketing companies at 118 naira to the liter, so that they will be able to sell at 165 or 170 at the pump. There's no other way of doing it. That means the difference between 118 and 371 is the burden carried by the state. It's not by the market. And a simple number around this will tell you that you will need about 6 trillion naira every year minimum to cover this gap at current market condition. Of course, this is fluid. It can change. Prices can collapse tomorrow. But in today's circumstances, this is what you are dealing with. Can we control the volume? Yes. Is it something that you can do tomorrow? No. Are there actions being taken by the regulators? Absolutely yes. I'm aware of a number of interventions that are going on to see how we can contain cross-border smuggling, internal leakages, a number of interventions with government security agencies, the EFCC, the DSS. Everyone is on the table to help us cut this down. But are we in full control? Absolutely not. And I will share this with you. As we all know, you see fuel stations dotted all across this country, but I'm not sure all of them have regular registration. Number one. Number two, you go to the border cities, and this is very, very fundamental to state. Most of the border cities that we know, I don't know if anybody from a border city, you will know that every border city has more fuel stations than it requires. No exception. Villages or towns that require just 4 fuel stations will have 30 to 40. And you can't stop it because they are, by law, they apply to set up businesses. You can't stop businesses. Technology, yes, you can do this. But nothing stops somebody from coming with jerry can to the fuel station and taking it out. So the only remedy is reducing the arbitrage. And we also recognize, as in this country, that there are stark economic realities. Abrupt shift in prices of energy supply can mean catastrophic economic distortions. We understand this. And every country in the world today is making one decision or the other around this. Reducing tax rates, removing tax on petroleum products. As a matter of fact, one country, I don't want to mention the name, 3 days ago decided that if the oil marketing company or the trading companies cannot bring in LNG into their country, the government is ready to buy at whatever price and bring it into their countries. This is just another way of saying it's a subsidy regime, no doubt about it. But because it's developed world, nobody talks about it. But this is the reality. So everybody is doing something to ensure that they cushion the effect of high prices. But is this something that you can continuously do? Absolutely no. That is why I agree with President. It's something that we need to have a conversation, have some kind of transition around this so that ultimately we can reduce the arbitrage. And as soon as you're able to reduce the arbitrage, you will see those evacuation figures will go down, because two things will happen. First of all, there will be no further incentive for cross-border smuggling. And more than anything, even the marketing companies will they won't have such enough resources to go to the depots to buy. And when it comes to the fuel station, many people here, I don't know, maybe most of you people have 2 cars, everybody will pack one. This will happen. It's very natural. Then we'll come down to the real level of consumption, which is that people will only buy what they need. Today, we buy what we don't need. And it's very difficult to stop it. And of course, it's also important to say something about our company at this moment. It's part of the transition journey. The privilege of the Petroleum Industry Act is that this company will be a commercial company. It will have no recourse to government funds. It will not be bogged down of any of the processes that have always become difficult for us to make decisions. By law now, this company is just another private company under the Company and Allies Matters Act. What it means also is that you must have clear governances, you must follow rules, you must pay taxes, royalties, that's everybody. And this is the new reality that we are facing as a company. And it's already working for our company. But I'm sure you have seen some of the activities that has happened from a loss-making company just 4 years ago to a net profit company that made profit over 600 billion naira profit. It is practical, it is possible, and the result is nothing other than changing your system and processes, being commercial, making decisions that are of commercial value. By the way, 600 billion plus is nothing for NMPC. A company that has assets of $60 billion cannot be talking about profit of less than $2 billion. So it's below our ability, our capability as a company. And I know that as we progress, the governance system that is in place, the realities of today, the fact that we have to operate under the KAMA rule means that we are going to have a bigger company that will deliver value to its shareholder. And that shareholders will decide what happens. And by law also, let me also address this. A number of concerns around ownership of this company. By law today, this company can sell equity. And I have said it over and over, by middle of next year, this company will be IPO ready. So the shareholders can decide to completely liquidate its interest. They can also sell part of it by law. So it is possible now. So no one is stopping it, and it is a potential that is there, because it will be a company that I'm sure everyone will rush to buy equity in this company. And the issue around dividend delivery, yes, let me also clarify this very clearly. We understand maybe as our communication is weak, and for our stakeholders and shareholders, we appreciate their concerns. But dividend comes from cash flow. And when you are a company today, the Federation is owing NMPC 1.3 trillion naira because of the subsidy, because our fiscal obligations are less than the value of the subsidy. Therefore, you cannot have fiscal obligation that is more than your value of the work that I'm doing on your behalf and expect that I should give you money. So it doesn't work. The two can't work together. But we're already engaging and absolutely sure that there's a framework that is being addressed between us and the owners of this company, particularly the Ministry of Finance, so that there will be an arm's length transaction between us and the state. So that we're delivering value, we'll give you an invoice, you settle your invoice, and we'll pay our taxes and royalties. There's no dispute around this, and we're very confident that this will work for our country. Lastly, and I must say that this is a moment of collaboration for our industry. It needs all of us. Please, if you see something anywhere in terms of these vandal actions, just remember that it will take you down, even you as a person. So take them down and join us. Thank you very much.
Please, let's clap for the GCEO of NMPC Limited, Madam Nelly Kolokiari, who have just given us the government perspective of an energy transition, positioning the Nigerian energy industry for the future. A round of applause for him as he takes a seat. The president of PENGASSAN, the past presidents, and other members, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving to having another perspective. And this time is the upstream perspective. And to give us that address, the keynote address, is the CCE NUPRC, who is here in person. Help me welcome Engineer Benga Komolafe to give us the upstream perspective. A round of applause for him, please, as he comes up. Please, let's clap till he comes to this point.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let me say up front that I'm very happy to be here, very relaxed to be here, in the sense that, to say that I'm a comrade at art. And yes. So being here with comrades, I feel very, very, at home. And equally to say that I may not be able to spit fire like the two comrades that are spoken earlier. The double president, that is the double president, and my brother, the GCO. The success of a son is the success of the father. Thank you very much. Comrade President PENGASSAN, the national executives of PENGASSAN, branch chairman PENGASSAN NUPRC, that is our own chairman, fellow comrades, members of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I feel highly honored to be invited by the National Executive of PENGASSAN to deliver a keynote address at this Made in PENGASSAN annual conference, tagged Energy and Labor Summit, to share our perspective on the topic, energy transition and its effects on the Nigerian workforce. First, let me pay a glowing tribute and commendation to the National President of PENGASSAN and his executives for organizing this event and their constructive roles in ensuring industrial peace and harmony in the Nigerian oil and gas industry, especially at a time when the industry is challenged by global and domestic factors such as energy transition, climate change, paucity of financing, crude oil theft, and a host of other constraints. Comrades, you certainly have your footprints in the sand of history as you have used your positions to defend the sustenance of a sector that is the highest foreign exchange earner for our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, remarkably, the oil and gas industry in Nigeria has contributed immensely to the economic growth of Nigeria for over 5 decades. Through this period, the industry metamorphosed from one dominated solely by international operators to an industry with many indigenous players, pulling their weight positively across operations in the petroleum value chain. The success and growth witnessed in the industry over this period can be hinged on robust government policies. For example, Nigeria Oil and Gas Industry Content Development Act and Petroleum Industry Act 2021 and other regulations, investment and a competent workforce. Before I delve into the crux of the topic proper, it is important to highlight the fact that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, achieved a huge milestone in the oil and gas space through the passage of the PIA in August 16, 2021. We all agree that the passage of the PIA brought about landmark reforms, clarity, and investors' confidence to oil and gas business in Nigeria, considering the fact that it took about 2 decades before it was signed into law. Furthermore, it is important to note that the PIA, under Cap 5, Section 314, guaranteed that no staff of the defunct DPR, PEF, and PPRA will lose his or her job as a result of the transition to the Commission and authority. This policy, as enshrined in the PIA, resulted in the first major interagency reform that resulted in 100% job retainment of all staff by the government. Evidently, the PIA aims to facilitate more jobs within the oil and gas sector via new policy trusts that shall drive investment and create value for 200 million Nigerians. Interestingly, the topic of this address is apt as fossil fuel-based companies have been targeted as the main culprit, causing environmental pollution and stalling the move towards clean energy or zero carbon emission. However, you will agree with me that in recent times, the clamor for clean energy has altered the world's energy landscape and caused huge investment deprioritization towards fossil fuels as the dominant fuel of choice. Historically, it is important to note that the policy drivers of previous energy transitions were developed after the technology had proved to be both efficient and economical. These factors caused a natural transition towards the new energy technology based on the fulfillment of simple techno-economic principles. However, the current energy transition, which has been largely driven first by policies, suffered various setbacks because of techno-economic flaws, such as storage concerns due to intermittency of solar and wind energy and price of energy from clean sources, which does not support a natural transition towards the new energy technology by the larger part of the world at this time. This concern, coupled with other critical social externalities, such as world geopolitics, energy security, and energy access, have the potential to store the justification for fast energy transition to cleaner energy sources due to the socio-economic imbalance that this may cause around the world. Moreover, I believe that the energy transition towards low carbon emission is valid. However, considering the fact that the developing nations contribute a negligible amount to global carbon emission, they should be allowed to produce fossil fuels in a sustainable manner and utilize the proceeds to catalyze economic growth and shared prosperity based on the principles of just energy transition. Comrades, in its commitment to optimization of Nigerian gas resources, the federal government declared gas as transition fuel towards a low-carbon future, which further reinforced the fact that Nigeria is more of a gas-rich nation than oil-rich nation. Having made this point clear, it is important to reiterate that the speed of the energy transition is uncertain. Its ultimate aim is towards a low-carbon future. As you know, during COP26, more than 150 countries have put forward new or updated emission targets, with several African countries, including Nigeria, making various commitments to restrict methane emissions, halt and reverse forest loss, phase out coal, and end international financing for fossil fuels. Nigeria committed to net zero carbon emissions by year 2060. Undoubtedly, these commitments pose a challenge to the oil industry, but therein lies huge opportunities that can be leveraged upon to position ourselves strongly in the new energy landscape. The picture is not totally gloomy, as projections show that over the next 2 decades, rapid population growth and industrialization are expected to drive strong energy demand growth across Nigeria and Africa, including for fossil fuels, which will result in an increase in job opportunities. Estimates show that the energy demand across Africa in 2040 could be around 30% higher than it is today, compared with a 10% increase in global energy demand. This fact signals an opportunity for the oil industry in Nigeria to focus on meeting future hydrocarbon energy demand in a sustainable manner. In the light of this reality, it is projected that various jobs will be created through implementation of the following gas-centric policies of government. 1, the Natural Gas Expansion Program, Midstream and Downstream Gas Infrastructure Fund, Domestic Gas Delivery Obligation. Comrades, it is believed that these policies will spur investment to expand the critical gas infrastructure that will entrench Nigeria as a gas hub in-country, across Africa, and eventually Europe. Some major in-country projects include the 614 Ajaokuta Kaduna Kano pipeline will supply gas for power, domestic use, and industrialization along Northern Corridor. The Escravos to Lagos pipeline will supply gas for power, domestic use, and industrialization along the Southwest Corridor. Along the gas corridor for domestic use and industrialization along the South-South corridor. LNG Train 7 and the ammonia plant in Akwa Ibom and Nigeria-Morocco pipeline aim to utilize the nation's rich gas resources to meet customer demands across Africa and Europe. This will invariably lead to the creation of more jobs in the country. Having identified rapid population growth and the need for industrialization as the enablers that will drive demand for energy across Nigeria and Africa, it is important to share our perspective on another enabler that will be affected by the energy transition, which is access to capital pools. Innovative approaches will have to be developed to attract investment to the oil and gas industry during this time of energy transition. What is paramount at this time is for the nation to weigh our options and strengthen the resilience and sustainability of our resources based in order to build robust positions in the new energy business of the future. Consequently, our position on the hydrocarbon cost curve is very important as this is a pointer to the competitiveness of our supply given the global nature of oil and gas demand and supply dynamics. Equally, our local content regulations must aim to strike an appropriate balance between building local industry capacity and reducing costs. Fortunately, the PIA 2021 provided new fiscal terms that will act as a lever to strengthen and optimize cost competitiveness in Nigeria. Still, we need to address sources of cost premium and improve the ease of doing business, including streamlining permitting processes and strengthening contract enforcement. Nigeria could further strengthen the resilience of our resources by considering initiatives to decarbonize existing oil and gas operations and continue to encourage investment in lower carbon energy infrastructure as gas pipelines, as this could reduce the risk of stranded gas resources. As stated earlier, it is expected that gas reserves will be a more resilient energy source under a range of energy transition scenarios. The National Gas Flare Commercialization Program, National Policy on Decade of Gas, which is hinged on the National Gas Expansion Program, National Gas Flare Elimination and Monetization Plan in line with Section 110 of the PIA 2021, Guideline for Management of Fugitive Methane and Greenhouse Gas Emissions in the Upstream and Gas Operations in Nigeria, and the inclusion of Gas Infrastructure Fund in the PIA are robust regulatory enablers to facilitate these energy resilience approaches that will make our hydrocarbon projects carbon emitters and more attractive to investors. We must begin to develop local innovative financing solutions to develop our huge gas resources as the number of international investors have dropped drastically. To this end, the Africa Export-Import Bank and Africa Petroleum Producers Organization have decided to set up an Africa Energy Bank to provide capital for oil and gas projects in Africa. Another critical enabler that can affect the Nigerian workforce during this time of energy transition phase is just transition. The just transition philosophy ensures environmental sustainability.
This is Channels Television. You've been watching a live coverage of the PENGASSAN Energy and Labour Summit from the nation's capital, Abuja. And that's all we can take as we now return to Lagos to continue with our regular broadcast. Stay with us.
You've been watching a live Channels Television event.
And create new revenue streams and jobs Fundamentally, it is important to note that within the next few years, most IOCs shall divest from onshore and gas assets due to poor return on investments as a result of crude oil theft, and this may pose threat to job security. However, it is expected that indigenous players would leverage on this to recruit experienced professionals who will in turn grow local capacity. In addition, indigenous players are urged to take advantage of the predictable licensing rounds as enshrined in the PIA and relevant regulations to form big companies that will grow in-country capacity and also expand outside the shores of Nigeria. Comrades, ladies and gentlemen, energy transition is real, just like the GCO equally mentioned in his address. However, the timing is uncertain. We are very aware that energy transition may threaten job security and stable investment in the Nigeria oil and gas industry. However, I align fully with the policy of government, which is on ensuring that we utilize our huge gas resources as a transition fuel towards cleaner energy sources. For the government, we must utilize our hydrocarbon resources for industrialization and economic growth. The PIA, its corresponding regulations and government policies have the capacity to build a resilient and sustainable oil and gas industry that will latch onto critical socio-economic factors across the world to increase gas production. Build a robust gas infrastructure that will entrench Nigeria as a gas hub across Africa and Europe, and all this will in turn create more jobs and attract investment across the petroleum value chain for the benefit of the Nigerian workforce. Ultimately, as the energy transition draws closer, the government will develop robust just transition policies that will provide guidelines on how oil and gas professionals can leverage on their core technical expertise to pivot to other clean energy sources. Comrades, before ending this address, let me take time to respond to the issue of, that is crude oil production, briefing out the crude oil production as mentioned by the double president, the comrade. So I think it's critical for me to use the opportunity to inform the comrades about the activities of the regulator and what we are doing as a regulator to actually beef the national supply and ensure that we beef up the national revenue, to align with the budgetary reference, budget of that is 2022 benchline crude production budget. At the moment, the commission, we soon, publicize the 7 bid rounds, and the essence of this is to equally ensure that we beef up the national crude oil production and rake in more revenue to, that is to beef the revenue base of the Federation. It is our expectation that through that exercise alone, the signature bonus expected from that exercise will be in the range of above $400 million. So we feel we are able to do this. This will help in the funding of the 2023 budget. Also, the Commission has gone ahead to announce the relaunch of the National Gas Flare Commercialization Program. And through that effort alone, we will be able to build up the Federation revenue and equally to support, the utilization of that is the domestic gas resources. So these are part of the efforts the Commission is making to strengthen, that is the revenue base of the Federation. Aside that, why the Joint Security Forces and the NNPC, as highlighted by the GCO, my brother the GCO, in respect of the crude oil theft, I want to announce that the NUPRC as a commission is equally doing a lot on the non-kinetic aspect in trying to contribute our effort into that is fighting the crude oil theft. And aside, there is equally the other aspect that needs to be strengthened. That is the crude oil. Crude oil. That is accounting. So we are trying to strengthen the transparency of the crude oil accounting, which is a very critical aspect of fighting the crude oil theft. So in that respect, the Commission is doing everything to ensure that all the flow stations are properly metered, at least using the original equipment manufacturer. So the Commission is, in the next few months, we ensure that OEMs are licensed to ensure that all the flow stations are metered. So through that, we can all be proud that at least there is transparent crude oil accounting, that has been strengthened. So these are a few of the efforts that the Commission is making as a contribution to helping the nation in, that is in the fight against the crude oil theft and in strengthening the transparency of crude oil accounting in a way that we can optimize our federation revenue from our hydrocarbon resources. Finally, I must not fail to conclude this address without again expressing our special gratitude to the organizers of the event, the National Executive of PENGASSAN, especially the National President, for the honor done to us by this special invitation. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your rapt attention. Thank you all.
Please, a round of applause for him. That was the keynote address